Martin marched so Barack could run and so on, and the association of Barack Obama with Martin Luther King Jr. has been extremely intense. You saw it at the inaugural, and in many other places, on t-shirts, as you've just seen, and so on. And I think in some ways it takes an anarchist to see some of the ironies involved. Martin Luther King was a pacifist who renounced violence in all its forms. And Barack Obama controls a world-annihilating nuclear arsenal, a sprawling federal prison system, probably the greatest military the world has ever known, a system for the internment and deportation of aliens, and so on. And so, in my view, let me say this, I think that pacifism entails anarchism because the political state rests on force and rests on violence. And if you don't think that's the case, then let's let the political state take a few months off from violence and force and see where we are, what it is after that. Some sort of club or benevolent association, but not a political state. Historically, the connection between pacifism and anarchism has been extremely close. And you see this really, probably beginning in the 18th century with some Quakers and stuff, but certainly in the early 19th century peace movement. I mean, in the first decade of the 19th century, David Low Dodge, an American activist and writer, came to believe that the teachings of Jesus were incompatible with violence in any form. And, the basic text for this is the Sermon on the Mount, of course, like return evil for good, love your enemies, turn the other cheek, and so on. Now, he drew the conclusion from that since human government rests on violence and is the agent of war, it is satanic and a barrier to the government of God. And a whole variety of, non-resistance and activists in various early 19th century reform movements in America, feminism, abolitionism, and so on, drew that same conclusion and came to anarchism through pacifism. William Lloyd Garrison did. Aidan Ballou did as well. Ballou wrote a book called Christian Non-Resistance, which in turn influenced Leo Tolstoy, who also directly drew the anarchist conclusion that if violence is not legitimate, then the political state is not legitimate. Pacifism entails anarchism. And in turn, Tolstoy influenced Gandhi, and Gandhi influenced King, and, to a large extent, this is the main line of world pacifism. And, not all pacifists have drawn the anarchist conclusion. Martin Luther King did not, I suppose. And, let me just say that, of course, you could have other goals besides eliminating the political state, even if you did actually regard it as illegitimate. For example, achieving racial equality, which you might actually think, to some extent, would be best done through the machinery of the political state. And I guess that's probably King's view. And furthermore, I mean, of course, these sorts of pacifists, even if they were anarchists, counseled non-resistance to the political state. So they were not revolutionaries in the sense of, let's go out and blow up the state. And, the only form of resistance that they countenanced was passive resistance. Obviously King was there and Gandhi. And so, in a way, they're liable to leave state power intact. But they certainly held that one could not participate in the violence of the state. One was morally obliged to withdraw. most of them held that one was morally obliged to withdraw one's financial contributions to the state for that reason. Thoreau, of course, argued that, although it's not perfectly clear that he was a pacifist, and so on. So I think that, one issue that arises is, I guess, the relation of anarchism as well to religious belief. And many anarchists, a famous anarchist slogan is "No gods, no masters." And many anarchists regard religion itself as an authoritarian system and hence incompatible with anarchism. I am myself an atheist, but I would say, many of the greatest moral examples that we have in history, including some I've just mentioned, emerged from religious traditions or were motivated by religion in the opinions that they held and in the reforms that they attempted to accomplish. And personally, if you're not recognizing any human authority that rests on force, I'm perfectly happy to welcome you into the fold. And because I suppose for one thing, I'm not sure about this, but the power of God does not appear to rest on the gun. And if that's true, then it's not subject to the same arguments with regard to its legitimacy that the state is. So again, let me repeat that I think that pacifism entails anarchism, although anarchism does not necessarily entail pacifism. See you later.